All right, here we are. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Insight Policing Livestream Uncut. My name is Dr. Megan Price. Welcome back. Yep, we see you guys each week, and which we always love. Right, so I am the director of the Center for Applied Insight Conflict Resolution. And we, through the three of us, Andre Brooks, Mike Delaney, and myself, we train insight policing, conflict resolution for law enforcement. Today, we are going to be looking at resistance, right? Resistance is what people do when they don't comply with an officer's order or command. It's when somebody says they refuse to move, or they don't want to show an ID, or they do something that is that gets in the way of the officer doing their job. And often, actually in 98% of cases, resistance leads to use of force because officers need to compel a subject to comply, right, or to submit to enforcement. So today we're going to be looking at a video out of Austin of some officers who are compelling a woman to comply using force, using hands. So we're going to take a look at that, talk about resistance, talk about use of force, and talk about some alternatives that might work. Yeah, Andre, Mike, you have anything to add?
No, I think it's, I guess we'll just wait to see the video, but I think you're right. It's
okay.
Interesting point.
I do want to add, in 2021, we're to the point now as officers that we just need to evolve along with the way society is moving, and so we can make it better for everybody. So this will be an interesting topic today, and this video is a real throwback, even though it just happened not too long ago.
Yeah. All right, so here we go. So I'm just going to pause this real quick. This video starts in the middle of this encounter. So what's happening is this woman, she's homeless, perhaps she's camping or sleeping outside of a pediatric facility, perhaps a hospital. And the security guard has asked that she leave, and she has refused. So the security guard called the Austin PD to remove her for trespassing. And so the officers came and were met with expletives and refusal. And, she said, "No way, I'm not leaving." And so, feeling as though they had no other choice, they are wrestling her to the ground.
Yep. So Megan, is there volume for this? Because I can't hear anything.
You can't hear that?
No. Andre, do you hear it?
Well, it was hard to hear when I watched it earlier, so I don't think there's a lot of clear volume, okay. And you can't really hear. I mean, you hear her say she's not getting arrested because she hadn't done anything wrong. You don't really hear them very much talking to her, so the volume is not too good with the video.
So they finally get her arms restrained behind her back.
It's hard work. All right, yeah. So the audio in that is less important, I think, than the visuals, right? I mean, what we see is those officers really struggling to get that woman under control and basically apprehended.
Right.
Mhm.
And it looks like if there's a bystander, another citizen, someone else recording from a cell phone there. So that's one version that we have so far. I don't think they've released the body cam footage there. I see a security guard in the back as well. So there may be other versions coming out, other angles that we see. But no, that they were definitely struggling there. And again, the video starts with them already engaged in the struggle. But I know there was in the article that they released there in Austin, they were talking about they tried to, they gave commands to the young lady, and things went downhill.
Mhm.
This is, I know we're going to get into it, but this is why insight policing is so important, because Andre, I tell you, I've been in law enforcement for 30 years and we didn't have training like this to give us the tool or the alternative to get curious and, to try to communicate better with individuals like that. We were taught to just go in, give a command, and if the command isn't followed, then you take the next step. You have to get that person out of there is what we thought, we had to do. So struggling and getting handcuffs on the person was our next alternative. So.
Well, I mean, I think you bring up a really interesting point, Mike. I mean, on the one hand, the officers are, they're in this really precarious position, right? They have a job to do. They've been called by the security guard to remove this woman from outside of the building, right? I mean, she's causing a disturbance, or it's not okay that she's sleeping there. I mean, for some reason, the business or the hospital wants her gone. And so the officers have a job to do, and they're expected to do that job, right? But the woman is not cooperating. She's not, when asked to leave, she's saying, no, I'm not going to leave. And so, Andre, I mean, it would be great to hear from you. They're escalating. They're going up the force continuum, right? They're there. They ask her to leave, tell, make, right? They tell her to leave and she refuses. And so now they feel like they have to make her leave. And so they go hands-on and they wrestle her to the ground and secure compliance, compel compliance that way. But the problem is, I mean, you see how harmful that is. So the officers are being scrutinized now for use of force, for punching and kneeing her in order to get her to relax enough so they can get her arms behind her back. So that's what the public is seeing. The public is seeing that. They're not seeing the perspective from the perspective of the officer, who feels like, what am I supposed to do? My hands are tied. I have to remove this lady who's not supposed to be here. That's my job. That's my role. And I don't have any other options. I think, yeah. So, I mean, I think what we teach is that there is another option. And the other option is to wonder, well, what is getting in the way of her complying? What is so important about her staying there, right? Getting to the root of that resistance, recognizing the resistance as conflict behavior and getting curious about it has the potential to really open up the information that the officers can use to figure out another way around to get her to comply, rather than having to go hands-on, and creating this spectacle that, Mike, I think, as you said right at the top, it's damaging the perception of police, you know, from the perspective of the community. And then it puts the officers back on their heels in a defensive position saying, what are we supposed to do?
Right.
Yeah, and I think, you know, obviously in today's policing, when you got it looks bad for policing to see that. You know, you see two guys on top of a woman beating her and struggling with her, and we don't know what preceded that in terms of the video. And you don't know, and you would only hope and ask that these officers approached and maybe asked some curious questions, as you know, as to why she was there or what was her reasoning. And then you don't know whether or not, you know, they were dealing with somebody with some mental issues. And you got to kind of approach everybody differently. But to actually just see that, and I would love to see the body cam, like you guys said earlier, just to see if these officers did take the time out to kind of speak to her prior to just, you know, giving her a command and she refusing, and then, you know, they go to a physical altercation with her. It's just not a good look. I mean, especially in today's era of policing, when you know, things have got to change, like you said, Mike. You know, if you don't use your mouth to communicate effectively, you see what's going to happen here. And you don't want to be on that end of scrutiny in front of millions of people watching you kick and beat this woman and struggle to get her in cuffs. So it's not a good look at all.
But at the same time, right, they're authorized.
Yeah, they are authorized. I mean, if she's passively aggressively resisting their orders to put her hands behind their back, even after they told her she was arrested. So I mean, yeah, she's resisting. They do have the right to use physical force, but you know, the ultimate goal is to effectively communicate with people so it doesn't result in this kind of situation here. But I mean, I do understand in policing, you know, it may come down to this, and that is, you know, that's one of the bad parts of that. We see the end result of something, you know, that a lot of people could kind of scrutinize, but we need to see the whole thing, you know. And I would urge Austin to release any body cam that may support the reasoning for what they've done in the situation.
Well, and it just goes back, like you said. I know people are scrutinizing that like they do every video that's out there. But guess what? In 2021, that's going to happen with all these cameras, cell phones. You have ATM cameras. You have cameras everywhere. It's going to be scrutinized, and you have to know that. And as a police department, you have to prepare your officers for that, to have alternatives to going hands-on in a situation like that. You know, they get a call that she's sleeping or she's resting or whatever. At that point, it doesn't sound like she's in harm to anybody. So talking to her more, and again, I don't know if she, you know, if there's more to it than the article suggests or that they posted there, but that gives you more time to talk. There's no need. And I even see at the end, the officer's putting his knee on her midsection on her back to hold her down. And she's not trying to move or get, and see that's more scrutiny. It's like you have to, you know, you have to understand that these cameras are there. You have to want to do what is right. And maybe they can come out and justify what they did and explain their version to the fullest. I'm not sure if they, you know, if they'll do that once that their body cams are released, but it's because we are getting scrutinized so much. You have to give your officers more tools to deal with this. And I think that's where we are right now. We have to get more officers trained in insight policing, some form of de-escalation. You have to.
And I think what we were talking about, you know, before we went live was that there's the force continuum is what it starts with your presence, right?
Physical presence, right?
Physical presence, and then it moves to verbal command,
right?
And then it goes to hands on. Hands on.
Say that again, Megan. Say next one.
And then it goes to hands on.
Right, after verbal, right, then the hands-on and your impact weapons, intermediate weapons, and goes all the way up to deadly force.
Okay, so So what we were talking about, and I think this really applies here and to what you're talking about in terms of offering and preparing officers with an alternative to use of force, right? When they're met with resistance, is so you show up, you give your command, come with me, right? You're not allowed to be here. You need to move, or you need to come with me. And then prepare officers to recognize resistance or noncompliance or that kind of aggression as conflict behavior. And when you can see it as conflict behavior, you know that there's a whole lot more to that resistance than just getting in your way, than just something that needs to be subdued, right, with force. Because when you know that there's more to discover, oh gosh, okay, so there's something at stake for this person. There's something going on. There's something that I can learn about what's making this difficult for her to come to move, right? Then you can get curious and you can really discover and elicit the problem. And not only are you going to establish communication and connection with this woman who's clearly having a hard time if she's sleeping outside of a building, right? Mm-hmm. So building that trust kind of in the encounter, but you might discover too, as an officer, the deeper, the more fundamental reason why she's sleeping outside, right? Maybe she needs a job. Maybe you have a resource that you can connect her with in the community. I mean, maybe there's something, else that you can do to help her to prevent her from sleeping outside another building tomorrow night, or meeting her again and again and again, and just getting her entwined in a system that, ends up kind of dividing or breaking down trust, or just creating barriers between really being able to help and do the work that law enforcement is supposed to do, which is, right, keep communities safe.
Right.
Well, no, you said the $1 million word there, prepare. Trying to prepare officers, and that is the type of thing that has to change worldwide with policing. You have to start preparing officers to communicate more effectively, instead of just being more like a physical presence where you got to go hands on. And I think that's where, even though I think today they're getting a little better with trying to use de-escalation tactics, but you really need to equip, like Mike said, these young troops and the seasoned officers with the ability to communicate effectively, and like you said, Megan, because now you're saying that people out here today are screaming for more police officers to offer citizens resources and offer people mental health and other things other than just incarceration. And I think that's it's a hard job these days to be a police officer, because it's just not just going out and using your physical force to get things done the way you think they should be gotten done. It's a whole lot more to this. It's almost being a social worker, a psychologist, a physical presence, and a shoulder to cry on. I mean, and we got to change that kind of thinking these days out here. I mean, without sacrificing your own safety or anybody else's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. We got to prepare. We have to prepare our officers for what policing requires right now, right? And that is communication skills, and so that they don't have to be all that, Andre, that feels like is piled on to them, right? Being the social worker and the psychologist and the pet rescuer and everything, right? But if they can understand what's going on, then they can collaborate with the community and plug people into the resources that the community has, or say, wow, there's a real gap in resources. We need more from the larger community so that everything doesn't fall on the police. But they are the ones who respond to challenging situations where people don't want to comply and people are in crisis. So being able to figure out the root of the problem is the key to preparing them for that work that they've signed up to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Totally agree.
Well, with that, I think we should end our live stream for today and think about, resistance and getting curious and where that fits on that force continuum, and really be grateful for the work that police officers do, and just think about how we can prepare those officers in the best possible way to use, alternatives to force to get compliance and get the job done.
Right. Great
All right.
point, Mike.
Okay, so we'll see you all next week, and